Well, we have had a day today. By hell have we had a day. Yeah, I got some mushrooms from down below last night, and there's even some up the top here that look to be horse mushrooms. A little bit of a yellow tinge on it. Some people get irritated guts from these, other people don't. I've had these before. There's sort of two types. You get ones with brown gills that don't have any yellow, and then you get some with little, like slightly salmon looking gills. You know, a softer sort of a brown that's more a salmon colour, and they get a little bit of yellow, and apparently, according to the internet, some people can handle them, and other people, the guts get irritated and they throw up. So I've had some of these yellow ones before, like I was saying. They're full-size mature ones. I was fairly alright. I've got a bunch of mature ones, but I also got a bunch of little ones where they hadn't spread out yet. They're like button mushrooms. And I ate a bunch of button mushrooms last night like that, and I was fine. I ate some this morning. There might have been a bit too much oil in the pan as well, but bad move. I ended up throwing up 3 times this morning. But soon it's a nice clear day. Mightn't look it to you, but it's not raining. My father wanted to come over and pull out the boxthorn stumps because it's going to rain tomorrow, and then maybe not for a day or two, and then rain a lot of next week, and the rain's really going to set in, and yeah, it's going to continue to rain. We've got a lot of rain so far, but we're going to get even more. But while the ground is still dry and not muddy, he wanted to pull these stumps out. So as you can see from here, he's been doing a fire break, and yeah, it was a little bit warm yesterday, not too bad, but he got out and he done the fire break. Doesn't matter, he shaded in the cabin there, and he also continued on with the road that sort of goes between the track that goes between the two properties. It's his house over there. Of course, that's my house right there. And this is the little track that goes between the two. So he's done all this yesterday, and then he's texted me in the morning, and I rang up and said, yeah, come over and we'll do all that and get all that out of the way. Anyway, drove down, and you know, he's about to change, he's still at a high enough gear, and he's about to change ranges, and there's a rock about 8 inches tall, something, you know, it's not tiny. And he tapped that rock, didn't he? Now, it didn't hit the sump because this is a big tall tractor, but you know, it takes a little bit of effort to get over a rock that's 8 inches. And it's something you don't want to do in high range when you've been running at fairly high speed from the other property and come down into here. You sort of, you know, you want it low range. You can't sort of see him too well because of the grass, and he was about to change into low range because we're about to, you know, get ready to hook up to a stump and pull it out. These only boxthorn stumps, they're pretty small. By the way, they've started well and truly on that. I'll show another video up there. I had a high definition video of this, but it just was way too large, so I'm making a second one in low definition. There's 2 poles they've put up there. They've done a bit of work up there. And in that, they got out me corner post. So that's quite a substantial size post, very big post. Hell of a big post, to be quite honest. Not quite good enough to reuse again. She was a little bit rotten under the ground. That's a bit of the mould. You can see it's the white part there. That's where it's starting to rot it. This end here, I don't know how you're going to see this. Ugh. Yeah, long story short, she's you usually put like a sheet metal cover over it, and it hasn't, and started to rot a bit in the end there. It's not too bad, but it's not worth reusing, so that's going to be firewood. Some of the other stuff I'm trying to use up here, it's been sitting out here from the trees that are ripped out the front of here. Anyway, he got down there and he hit this rock, and because he was still in high range, he bloody stalled. And we thought, shit, battery in it's a piece of crap. It can't maintain any more than 6 volts in this battery. What are we going to do? We're going to have to jump start it. That's how he does it. He gets his Toyota 4-wheel drive, jump starts it. It's an old mechanical diesel pump. It's like a I don't know what it is. It might be a 79, 77, 78, somewhere around there. I did used to know. I think it's a 78. But anyway, he hit that rock and she stalled. And of course we knew we didn't have any battery to restart it. So he had to go back home. I had to take him back there. So get the 4x4, bring it down, which is down here near that tree. And in between him doing all of this stuff, I've hucked up a few times, feeling like crap. But no, I was determined to keep on going with this day because I've been waiting a fair while for this day myself. And you know, it's not like a little tractor like this thing. You know, stuff that. This is a fairly decent sized one. But, you know, we've stalled it. We've got to restart it. Jumper leads is the way we restart it. There's no point buying a new battery that's going to cost $300 to use this thing 3 times a year, and the rest of the time the battery's going flat again, you know? So we just don't start it. But had to go over there and get the 4x4. So we tried on one side that was an upper side that was less chance of rocks and all that. So we'll sit there. Wouldn't do it. Didn't want to go. Shit. So we come around the other side. You know, we're wiggling the leads and all this. So he comes around the other side to the side that the starter motor's on. Sticks it on there. Same old bullshit. Except this time, the jumper leads are starting to smoke. And so, what ends up happening, he says, you get in and you rev it up a little bit. Just to give you a bit of, give us a bit of power to kick it over. Just give it a bit of extra revs. And I realised as he's trying to start this thing, the fan that's running the air conditioner inside the 4x4, the bloody fan's, like the fan's just about dying. And I'm like, wow, must be hammering the hell out of this thing on power draw. I said, the fan's dying. And the only time I've heard the fan dying, when you start, that's when it's such an incredible draw that you're just about outrunning the batteries and the alternator, because it's a dual battery 4x4 that he's got, you know. And it's like 2 12-volt batteries, and they've sort of got like a bit like my van, where you got like a dual battery system where you got a standalone one, but he's got 2 batteries in it anyway. And I mean, it would just, I said, if we're drawing all the power off these 2 batteries and it's killing the fan, I said, there's something like we're just about basically shorting it out. Because there's no way that that alternator and 2 batteries can take such a kick that the fan starts going slow, you know. And it's like, I'm talking the interior blower fan, you know. And he said, you know, I think this bloody engine seized. It just doesn't seem to want to go. So I said, well, because first of all, I said to him, what you should do is turn it over so maybe we're starting at top dead center. So if we turn it a bit, we'll get them off top dead center, and then it'll be easier to start. And he said, oh, it just should tick over anyway. And he said, I think it's seized. And I said, well, go back and get a spanner and we'll see if we can turn it over. So he went back and got a spanner, and you couldn't believe it. From stalling an engine, no rock touched it. The rock just hit one of the wheels and lost power because it was in too high a range. You couldn't make this shit up. We couldn't turn. We had a spanner on where the crankshaft has its main pulley that runs all the fan belt. We couldn't turn it anti-clockwise. Then we tried to turn it clockwise. It wasn't going to move. It was absolutely jammed solid. And I put gloves on, and I'm heaving like hell. It just wouldn't move. We stalled an engine by having it in too high gear as it went to go over a rock. Nothing touched the engine. There was no big clatter. There was no bang. There's no signs of damage on the block. And we killed the engine. We've fully shit the engine. Some of you may remember this, that I've been walking around for the last 5 minutes. There's nothing ever really wrong with this except bald tyres, and it got the magical little yellow sticker, which is another way of saying no longer roadworthy. the rust isn't exactly but this has been sitting here since since the early 2000s, I think. I think it's since about 2005, I think. And she been rusting, and she been rusting through the timber, and she been rusting where there's already bog, and she been rusting, and you might know what this is. You might know this model. That's all fiberglass. And my father was going to get it running and sell it to a collector, and he's got mates who are sort of in a club that collects these, and the rust is very, very bad, very bad. But his mate had someone, oh, they might buy it, and this and that, so he said, well, at least get the engine going. And I thought, no collector wants an engine that's been abused by starting it with oil that's been in it for 15 years and then hasn't been changed for 10 years. Last time this thing saw an oil change was the late 90s. So I had to tell him today, I secretly went and changed oil on this thing, and it took 13.5 litres. I mean, it was fucking gallons this bastard took. I mean, it's like bloody, I think it works out like 5 gallons or something, I don't know. It's a bloody lot. And it cost me a couple of dollars to change the oil in this engine before he was going to start it, and when the oil come out, oh wow, it was like water. It wasn't actual water, it was perfectly black. It was as black as these tyres. There's no signs of white in it, but it poured out on a cold engine like water. It was almost like bloody diesel. It was so thin and so stuffed, this oil, it wasn't funny. So I put some 15W40 fleet oil in there, which is your standard diesel for this sort of an engine. And you're not going to believe this. We popped the hood on this because we knew the other one was a low 300-ish cubic inch Perkins diesel. And this thing is like early 70s, might be 73, and the tractor's like 77, 78. And you are not going to believe it. This is a 354 cubic inch diesel. It's 100 horsepower, and the tractor is a 70 horsepower with smaller bores and the same block and essentially the same damn engine, just smaller bores than this one. And the pump's the same, and this is the same, and that's the same, and the manifolds are the same except the tractor one goes upwards. And this one's got an oil bath filter, and the tractor's got a cyclonic and then a paper filter. But essentially it's the same, except the starter motor on this one is on the right instead of being on the left. And so it turns out there is a little band that is about an inch thick, and then it hooks to the bell housing. And we had a look at the tractor, and it has a little band slightly more than half an inch, but not 3/4 of an inch thick, and hooks to the bell housing on this side. It's not hooked to the engine, it's hooked to the bell housing, because that's where the flywheel is. You know what's going to happen next, don't you? We're damn glad we didn't sell this to any collectors. Look at that, old school brass radiator, proper radiator. What we're going to need to do is pull this engine out and put it in the other one. Now, we've got a diesel mechanic who lives up the road, and we're going to ask his advice on a few minor things, because he gave me advice on how to change the oil on this thing, and that's the filter down there, and the filter has an offset nut and blah 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 blah, and he knew this thing inside out and back to front, and there's a high chance that he'll know the other one inside out and back to front. And thank God that that blasted thing is connected to the bell housing, because that means there's a very high chance that the whole lot of this will just swap straight out of one, straight in the other, and then we gain another 30 horsepower extra. Oh, and by the way, the other one blows white smoke, this doesn't blow white smoke. Not when it was last driving. When it was last driving, it wasn't smoky at all. It's actually, hopefully the rubbers haven't got worse, but it's actually quite a lot better engine than the other one. Regardless of the fact my uncle didn't do many oil changes, if any, on this damn thing. It was never pouring white smoke, and the tractor always pours white smoke. So there we go. We got a big well, I haven't, but he's got a big project ahead of him, and I'll bet I'll be dragged into it one way or the other anyway. And looks like we might be taking the bonnet off and doing a few bits and pieces to lift this out, possibly even taking the whole front off. And looks like he's going to give away probably the grill that hasn't shattered, and a whole heap of other bits and pieces to some of his friends who are in this club, because they might want to get the interior is actually quite good, to be honest. All the instrument panel and all that. It's not too bad at all, actually, in there. And all the trims and all that are still in there. Regardless of the fact the window's been open for bloody 15 years, no shit. It's, yeah, going to be good for little bits and pieces for them. And it looks as though we'll be transplanting an engine. And I said to him, you couldn't make it up. I said, the bloody glory of being able to pull an engine out of a truck that shares the same block as the one in the tractor and basically just transplant it over. Oh, wow. You know, we thank God we're going to have a tractor that runs again with an engine that doesn't smoke, that's actually higher horsepower, but fits exactly the same because it's the same block. And we never had to try and sell this for bugger all because it was half stuffed. And we're going to be good. I'm bloody pleased. I said you just couldn't make it up. You really, honestly couldn't just chance it that you had a dead truck with basically the same engine as a dead tractor engine that you can just transplant straight in. Friggin' unbelievable, really. Look at the shitty old retreads he's got on this thing. So there's a chance that they'll want the diffs and everything out of it, and a lot of the other stuff. And long and short of it is, even if we have to get this rusty heap of crap, which isn't that thick in places at all, and I've got to run from one end to the other with an angle grinder to make it into two halves, the chassis itself, once you remove the diffs and the wheels, the chassis itself, it's only about 2.5 foot wide. And we should be able to get a scrap metal guy to come out and fit it on the back of his tilt tray and piss the rest of it off. Incredible. Incredible. Hell, I might even take this off, turn it upside down, try to patch up some of that shit and turn it into a flat shed that I can keep blooming firewood in, because I'm obsessed with stupid firewood sheds for no real reason. By the way, that tank there is likely to turn into a blasted shed before long, because I've actually got sheets now that will fit that, and I've got to make a bit of framing up and concrete in, but that'll turn into another wood shed before too long. And the door, we just cut a hole out with an angle grinder, don't you? Yeah, and then you put hinges, and then it's the door. So that'll be a bit more of a place to hold a few things that I'm thrilled to bits that this looks like this is going to happen. You really couldn't make these things up, you know, you really couldn't. And what a coincidence, same age, basically same engine, and looks like we've the day's been saved. Anyway, there we go.